Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. Today's demonstration is all about when you're stuck for ideas and not sure what to paint. It's really quite simple. Don't try and wait for inspiration, it will never come. Just paint. Get a small sheet of paper or a pad. This is an 11 by 7 piece of Saunders Waterford 300-gram rough paper. And just play around with your palette and see what happens. For example, if I draw a horizontal line about a third of the way up from the bottom of the sheet, I have a starting point following the rule of thirds. This could become a landscape, a seascape, a cityscape, anything I want. So let's just imagine I'm going to turn it into a landscape. So I'm just going to draw a couple of lines from the bottom left to roughly a third of the way along the horizon, again following the rule of thirds. This gives me a pathway leading into a focal point in the painting. If you're going to follow this exercise, don't try to paint a masterpiece. It's just a way to practice a few techniques and get to know your palette a little bit and understand how the colours work. So what I'm going to do is start with the sky. So I've mixed up some ultramarine with a touch of yellow ochre and a pool of very weak yellow ochre as well. I'm working on dry paper and I'm just going to blend the two colours together, wet into wet on the dry paper. I could have wet the paper first and had much softer edges, but I just wanted to let the colours blend together and try and have a little bit more control over where the colours go. So starting with the grey-blue mix of the yellow ochre with the ultramarine, just scumbling it in roughly, very loosely, and now I'm just adding the very weak mix of yellow ochre and letting it all blend together at the edges. Just adding a few more strokes with the grey colours to darken a few areas. Again, as I say, letting it all blend together. Soft edges, but not overly soft. If I wanted it really soft, I'd have wet the paper first. And I'm just going to lift out a few patches of light clouds with some clean paper towel. The sky will dry much lighter once I've dried it. I'm going to dry it with a hairdryer shortly. Okay, the sky is now dry and I'm reasonably pleased with the way it's turned out. Do have a go at painting skies. They're a lot of fun to paint. One of my favourite things is painting skies, and they never turn out the same. Everyone will be different. And now that that's dry, I can think about what I'm going to do. And I've decided to paint an autumnal scene where the leaves are just turning into their autumn colours, and with a field in the foreground and a path leading up to that vanishing point. So I'm using the weak yellow ochre mix for the pathway, for the underpainting of the pathway. I'll be darkening areas of this later and just putting a few patches on the field as well. I've just mixed up some sap green with a touch of that sky colour, just to deaden it a little bit for the underpainting. It's a very weak mix, so it's going to dry much lighter. But I'll add a few darker patches as we go along with a stronger mix of the sap green, just to create a few variations in tonal value on the foreground field. This is just the first wash, and while it's still wet I can add a few more streaks of darker areas, and these will dry much lighter and they give me the basis for adding darker tones later on. Just adding a few darker streaks of the sap green, much stronger mix, just while it's wet in wet. Do have a go at this. It's good practice for getting to know how your colours blend together. Okay, I'm drying this with a hairdryer now, so that I can make a start on the horizon line where I'm going to put a row of trees, and just mixing up some autumnal colours, some burnt sienna and some cadmium red, and just strengthen that yellow ochre, make it a stronger mix. And starting with that, just the tops of the trees. It's early autumn here in the UK, and you find that the tops of the trees tend to change colour first, and then the rest of the tree will follow as time goes on. But for the purpose of this, I want the bottom of the tree line to be green still. Just adding a bit of cadmium yellow as well. I'm making this up as I go along, so we'll have to see how it turns out. But I think it'll be okay. Just making sure that the base of the tree line is darker, because that would be in shadow. And as I add these darker colours on the trees, you can see that the sky tends to drop back into the distance and is less dominant, whereas when I finish the sky, it looked fairly dominant. So just bear that in mind. Again, everything dries much lighter, and I'll have to darken these as I go along. You can go in with thicker paint and paint the darker colours in one go if you want, but I like to blend wet in wet and let the colours interact organically and see what happens. Whichever way you want to do it, it's up to you. There are no rules in painting. Paint the way that you want, but this is a good exercise to get to know your palette and just understand how painting with thicker, stronger values works differently to when you paint with a wetter, more watery mix. Just adding some fairly neat cadmium red to those the tops of those trees, and letting it blend with the green. Not trying to paint any detail on these distant trees, just a suggestion of what's there and the tonal values and the colours. Again, these will dry lighter, so you can be bold and use darker colours on these trees. They will dry lighter. Got a few splatters on the sky, but I've dabbed them out with a paper towel, but I'll turn those into birds at the end, I think. Happy mistakes. Okay, I'm going to start working on this pathway now. Stronger, slightly drier mix, just to put some ruts in the pathway, as if maybe a tractor's been along the track, or a car maybe. And just defining the edge of the field a bit more, the edge of the grasses, and just darkening that area. I'll probably go darker with it as we go along. Just using a slightly drier brush technique here, just to get some texture into into the right hand field a little bit. Again, it's all good practice. Try some dry brush techniques and see how it goes. Just using some neat Van Dyke brown for the trunks on some of the distant trees. Nothing too specific, just suggestion that there are some trunks there. As I said at the beginning, I'm just making it up as I go along, and it's a good exercise in just using your imagination and not sitting there staring at a blank sheet of paper waiting for inspiration. Once you get painting, you then tend to come up with ideas for future paintings. Just using a rigger here to indicate some foreground grasses on this right-hand field, just to bring the viewer's eye forward so that the painting has a bit more depth. Always handy to have something in the foreground as a focal point to create depth in the painting. This is a mixture of sap green and jadeite green. As I said, using a rigger just to very quickly paint in some grasses in the foreground. Just doing the same thing with some of that Van Dyke brown, just to vary the colours of the foreground leaves and branches, twigs really. Again, same with a strong mix of yellow ochre. Just adding a little bit of detail to the taller grasses. Just a few here and there. You have to don't overdo it. Just a few bits here and there. I'm just using some neat cadmium red to put in some suggestion of some poppies. Adding a few yellow flowers as well. A little bit of variety. I'm not going to overdo it, just enough to bring the eye forward. I'm just using those little spots that I flicked onto the sky as the basis for some birds flying over the trees and flying towards us maybe. I've got a bit heavy with the one on the left, so I've just dabbed that out and let it dry, and I'm just using a rigger just to make it a slightly larger bird, as if it's a little bit closer to us. Again, using the rigger just to add a little bit of detail on the edge of the field on the left. Just scumbling in some dry brush as well with the side of the rigger, just to create a bit of texture on the foreground. It brings it forward to the eye. Do try this. Dry brush is always a good way of picking up the texture of the paper. As I said at the start, this is Saunders Waterford rough paper, so it's got a nice texture to it. Just decided that the shadow under those trees on the right hand side was a bit weak, so I'm just strengthening that with a touch of jadeite green added to the sap green just to darken it slightly. Just gives a little bit more depth to the painting. I'm just going to darken these fields a little bit, a few patches of stronger value on the sap green with a touch of jadeite green as well, just to give it a little bit more three-dimensionality, I guess. This is a fairly dry mix, so I'm not going to disturb the foreground grasses that I painted earlier. And just darkening the edge of the track just to give it a bit more definition closer to us. Just letting the paint get weaker as it goes into the distance. And I think I'm pretty much finished. So what have I practiced with this exercise? I've practiced blending wet into wet on dry paper. I've practiced lifting out with a paper towel. I've practiced dry brushwork. I've worked on a simple composition using the rule of thirds. I've painted grasses with a rigger brush, and I've corrected a few mistakes by turning a few little splatters into some birds. So whenever you're stuck for ideas for what to paint, don't wait for inspiration. Just start painting and see where it leads. If nothing else, you'll practice a few techniques and get to know your palette a little better. I do hope you found this exercise useful. Do give it a try. And if you did find it useful, please give the video a like. It really helps with YouTube. Do subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and hit the notification bell for future videos. And once more, thanks for watching.